So we're in Spring Branch with Gretchen Bernabei. She's going to be giving a wonderful workshop today on a lot of different aspects of guided writing. And I wanted to introduce her and have a little conversation with her for the blog Just Right Baby, for all of you to know that she's coming to Houston on, I think, the Friday coming up on the 18th of October. So I would like to ask her a few questions, but first, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gretchen Bernabei.
Okay, and so what are some things that you would like to tell some people about writing? About writing in general, about anything that you believe about writing?
Well, I like to put into practice the main foundational beliefs of the National Writing Projects, which are the only way kids get better at writing is by writing, that teachers of writing need to also write, that writing is such a process and we learn what works and what doesn't work by doing it and watching how it affects audiences, which means kids have to write and they have to read what they write to other people and listen to the reactions people have. That's always been true, and it's never been more true than it is now.
All right, and so you have several books out. Your latest one you're signing, but The Story of My Thinking is one of them. I believe that came out last year, and then you have another one, Fun Academic Writing.
Fun size.
Fun size academic writing.
It's more about the size of the lesson than the funness of it.
And that's for grades 4 through 9. And I know you've done a lot of work with showing students different structures, and then they try out different structures and they share different structures. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, sure. Every piece of discourse, whether it's spoken or in writing, every message delivered from one person to another has a structure of some kind. And all of our best pieces of literature, our best speeches by people in history, our best documents, everything, you can take those and read them, chunk them up, look at the chunks of them, and see what steps the writer produced to take their listener or reader on some sort of a journey. So if we identify those and use those steps, we can use those not just to understand what they said, but step in the same steps ourselves as writers and borrow those structures to accomplish our own messages in ways that we maybe didn't consider before.
And so we're tracking the movement of the mind of the writer.
That's exactly right.
And I use that from you because you say that a lot, and I use that phrase a lot.
Well, it's actually a quote from Thomas Newkirk. Thomas Newkirk says that writing should track movement of the mind. And when I read that from him in a monograph that he wrote back in the 80s, I realized that's what writing is supposed to do. It does track movement of the mind. And it was actually that expression that started my path to looking at what structures people use when they're writing. So all these text structures, that's what we've been trapping, borrowing, generating, thinking of ever since that day. Because he said people just keep teaching the 5-paragraph essay like it's the only structure there is because we don't have any teachable alternatives. Well, I read that back during the development of the tax test and thought, he's right. That's why we keep teaching it, because kids do need help with structure. They don't know what to do with a blank page. They need some steps, and we don't have a teachable alternative to the 5-paragraph essay. And I took that as my personal mission. By golly, let's get out there and find some teachable alternatives to the 5-paragraph essay. That is one viable structure. It's not as intriguing to a reader as a structure that takes them to a surprising place. You know, with the 5-paragraph structure, it's an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And the conclusion, what does it do? It usually restates the intro. It doesn't have any surprises in it for a reader. And so they're not very interesting to a reader. That's why Barnes & Noble doesn't really sell that many 5-paragraph essays. You don't see them in magazines. You don't see them out in the wild. You don't see them anywhere where people are reading on purpose. And so trying to find some structures that would enable kids to, with the guidance of the 5-paragraph essay, with that much guidance step by step, they could put themselves on the step-by-step process through just a little bit of practice and see there is a wealth, a range, a world variety of structures, and they can pick and choose structures to support their own purposes, which they certainly have purposes in.
And they also, like you said, they create their own, because I've used a lot of your work within the classrooms as well, and they learn these structures, they try out and play around with these structures, and then they make up these wonderful structures of their own.
A lot of these have student names on them.
Yes.
Because they are structures that students created. A lot of high school students were creating those structures, but anybody could.
Right, and so then it helps them realize, hey, I can write, I can create, and then I can analyze reading. It will help me become a better person where I can analyze what I'm reading and you know, like you say, skin slippage. Slip into the mind of that writer, that author, and understand it from their point of view, which is a lot of the start kernel essays, or whether they're looking at another piece of writing, they're looking at those text structures, and it has a great connection to reading. So, and it all goes back to what you were saying with tracking the movement of the mind, and that's where it started for you.
Yes.
Tracking the movement of the mind.
That exact phrase. I read Thomas Newkirk back, I guess I was reading it when the tax test was being developed, and he said in a monograph that that's why we have writing, to track the movement of the mind. He was talking about essays, and that the five-paragraph essay was the only structure that it seemed like people were teaching, and he was trying to figure out why that was, that how kids need so much help when they're about to write something, and that's one teachable structure. He said in this monograph, the five-paragraph essay is about the only teachable structure that we have. There's no teachable alternative, and kids need that much help. They need step-by-step help, which we know that's true. And so I remember reading that and thinking, Eureka, he's right. We don't have a teachable alternative, and so let's go get some. Let's go hunt some down by looking at what structures people use in literature, in history, in the news, on TV, in movies. What structures are there? And so I've been working on finding them, adapting them, inventing them, capturing them, and showing kids how to invent them ever since. And so that's this list of structures that we have that's useful has just been growing and growing and growing. And kids can do with any structure what they can do with a five-paragraph essay. Look at the parts, write a tiny bit for each part, and then bloom them out with details however they or you want to.
Right, as a teacher models, and as they come to become more accomplished writers. So accomplished, I said that for a particular reason. I want to become accomplished, but yeah, that's so true. I want to thank Gretchen for coming to Spring Branch to share her research, because this is research, and you've done a lot of work with students. It's not just, okay, I think this is true. You know it's true because of the research you've done with students, but also all the studying different writing gurus and going through, like you said, from the National Writing Project and other places like that. So
There's so much good work going on across the country, and if we are involved in conversations with each other, we all get so much better.
That's the truth. We need to share the wealth with everyone. And what I want you to get from Gretchen is from many different things. If you happen to come see her at Spring Branch, or if you happen to go see her when she has some workshops, is that the feel of writing, the love of writing, and being able to share that with our students. Writing is not so daunting. It can be, and it can be. But with her workshops and then coming to that, you will find that you fall in love with it. Right, Elena?
It's fun.
Yeah. Writing is thinking, and writing is problem solving, and tracking the movement of the mind. I use that term quite a bit since I've come to your workshops, and then, you know, I use the same things with my students when I work with them, and the other teachers when I work with them. And it's brilliant. So, thank you.
We need to thank Thomas Newkirk for his brilliance.
Yes. Oh, one more thing. I know that you mentioned something within your book and some of your workshops about thinking about the different types of writing, and where you have the narrative is what has happened. Could you
Oh.
expound on that a little bit? 'Cause I love
Yes.
that.
That's from James Moffat.
Right.
And what William Strong called the Rosetta Stone for English teachers, James Moffat's book entitled Teaching the Universe of Discourse, published in the 60s. It is my go-to book for all things about why and how we teach kids to write. Anyway, he said we should be tapping in the kids' own inner streams of ideas, sensations, memories as raw material for any kind of academic writing, essays of generalization, essays of theory, reports, narratives, that we should be tapping them for everything. And if we just tweak the verb tenses, that drama is what is happening currently, or we can create a current thing with plays and that, but that's drama. That narrative writing is what happened, past tense. So if it happened to you, it's a personal narrative. If it happened in history, a historical narrative. If it happened in fiction, it's a fictional narrative. But they all are things that happened, and telling what happened creates the narrative. That expository writing, that informational writing, is what happens, what things are, what they do, what people need, how people get them, where to go, what they cost, all kinds of present tense, what happens. That's informational writing. And what should happen, or what's going to happen in the future, becomes persuasive writing. This is going to happen to you if you don't stop, or I promise you if you do this, this will happen.